Hi guys, this is Dimple Mehta and you are listening to Our Quest. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast where we are trying to bring you topics that help you grow, achieve higher peaks in life, strive, thrive, and congratulations as you've already taken the first step towards it. Today with us is a very special guest whom you will remember every time you're having breakfast because he's none other than the business head Gulf from Kellogg's, Mr. Dinesh Dembla. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dimple. It's awesome to be here. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you always. And today we are going to be talking about how to choose between corporate professionalism and entrepreneurship as your career path. So, Dinesh, thank you so much for bringing in this topic into our notice and gracing us with your presence to discuss about this and help the listeners learn more about it, because I think it's something very important for everybody's life. And most of us at some point or the other do go through that dilemma whether we should choose between corporate professionalism or entrepreneurship as our career path. So we are very excited to learn from you how we can make that decision better.
I hope I can help.
I'm sure you will. Right. So my first question would be, how do we decide based on our personality traits whether we would be a good corporate professional or not?
So I think, I'm no expert in this subject. I can only give my, personal experience. And that's what, I believe that will probably help some people distinguish between, what is it that I need in order to be a corporate professional? What do I need to be an entrepreneur? To be honest, to begin with, they're not very far from each other, right? I think both require resilience, both require a level of ambition. I think the fundamental difference between being a corporate professional and an entrepreneur is, are you okay with a mundane sort of a job on a daily basis, right? So when you're a corporate professional, a lot of times, you go to work and you're basically just doing it for a paycheck, right? But you know that the kind of quality of work that the output is there is probably something that you're just kind of churning out on a daily basis. If you're okay with that, right? And a lot of people like a very steady stream of income, right? Because you have bills to pay, you don't want to be able to take the risk, and you would end up becoming a corporate professional. Now, having said that, there's different layers of corporate professionalism, right? There's the basics, there's the mid to sort of senior managers, and then there is the executives. And all of them have a very different journey, even on a daily basis, right? So a CEO of a company has a very different day from somebody who's, let's say, an accountant or just a sales executive, right? So I think the fundamental difference is your risk-taking ability, right? Are you wanting to take that risk? Are you okay with performing a job on a daily basis that's very similar in fashion, day in, day out, month in, month out, right? That typically becomes the nature of a corporate professional. Having said that, an entrepreneur can also go through some of those phases, right? Sometimes as an entrepreneur, you may not have work for days or for weeks, right? So what do you do at that time? So I think that's fundamentally the distinguishing thing about being a corporate professional is, are you okay with sort of the run of the mill on a daily basis?
You need to be okay with monotony.
Yes,
up
absolutely.
to a great extent.
Yes,
to be a good corporate professional.
Yeah.
Amazing. So if that makes me a good corporate professional, to have a lot of resilience and to be okay to accept mundane work up to a great extent, what is it that would make me a good entrepreneur on the other hand? What personality traits should one have to be a good entrepreneur?
So I think, the textbook definitions I'm going to talk about first, right? And I think most people would probably relate to this, to say that the biggest thing that you need to be an entrepreneur is you have to be able to take risks. You have to be okay with the fact that, you might invest some money into something and that may not give you the returns that either you imagined or aspired to have, or no returns at all, right? So starting with the mindset saying that it's okay to fail, I think is the number one thing that it takes to be an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
And I think you have to have a certain elevated level of passion for what it is you want to do versus being a corporate professional. Now again, it becomes very challenging when you compare these two, because it's
I mean, I can be passionate in my corporate
absolutely
profession that I'm following. I could be an excellent digital marketer, for example, and still not be an entrepreneur. So, how to judge based on my passion? Which one to
exactly.
choose?
And so you rightly said it. You need passion across both, because as a corporate professional, if you don't have the passion, you're not going to grow. I mean, that's as simple as that. But there is what the elevated level of passion that I'm talking about being an entrepreneur is something that is slightly a bit more on the emotional side of it, to say this is what I'm going to be doing, this is going to be feeding my family, right? This is going to be paying my bills. So I think automatically, because you have a certain personal vested interest in an entrepreneurship, you tend to put in that little bit more effort, right? That little bit more passion that comes from deep down inside your heart. That's the level of elevation that I'm talking about, right? Which you may or may not put today in your corporate job. I mean, there's a lot of people that go all out in terms of passion as well, right? So I think the ability to take risks, um, and I think their timing is also a key thing, right? What point in your life are you at? I think it's a no-brainer that the earlier you start in terms of being an entrepreneur, you have a lot more time in terms of taking advantage of the learning curve, right? So if you're 20, 21 years old and you just want to go in and start something, even if you fail in about a year's time, that's okay, because you have 30 more years of your work life left for you to learn from and sort of adapt to that and change. So I think typically, maybe I think I would say three things. One is risk taking ability, one is that elevated level of passion and knowing what it is you want to do and knowing what it is you're good at. And the third thing is what I just talked about. I forget.
Absolutely right. And I totally agree with that, especially because sometimes the passion needs to be much more than just paying for your own bills. Imagine you're an entrepreneur who has 50 employees, and even if the business is down, sometimes you have to keep it afloat because those houses depend on you. So your passion is also regarding taking care of those salaries or those employees who are dependent on your business. So even that counts as a passion,
Absolutely.
when you're deciding to take up a path as an
Right.
entrepreneur.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's interesting to know how a person's personality or how that person has been raised, or what he or she has been exposed to throughout his life, his or her life, um, decides or shapes them uh, to to be more suitable either as a corporate professional or an entrepreneur. However, in both cases, we all need to have certain skills. So, what do you suggest if somebody wants to pursue a career as a corporate professional? What skill set should they have?
So in terms of skill sets, I think typically one would, when you talk about skill sets, you divide it into hard and soft.
Right.
I think a basic hard skill would be that in order for you to venture out into any sort of a corporate vertical, you would need to have at minimum a basic education level.
Right.
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 Certain countries, certain jobs, they require different levels and layers of education.
Right.
Right. But at minimum, you would need to be a college graduate in order to
Yes.
get a job. So
Yes.
let's assume that you did a business degree out of a good college in whatever country that you are from, that whatever country you're pursuing a job in, that would be qualified as a basic hard skill that you would need to have.
Definitely.
In addition to that, college degree, what you specifically major in, like typically in your, I guess we know this because we're both university graduates, you would have electives, you would have certain subjects that you would want to focus on.
Most definitely. Some specializations and some are minors.
Absolutely, right? So for example, I did a combination of finance and marketing as my majors
Yeah.
because I always knew that I wanted to do a sort of blend of both of those.
Which is an excellent combination to have because they're two very opposite fields.
Exactly, right? So I think those hard skills, having a college degree that gives you an overall, sort of background on business, case studies, etc. Further to that, you could do additional courses beyond your college in terms of any hard skills that your job may require. For example, if you're an IT professional, having
You can add more
knowledge of
skills.
exactly,
Yeah.
right, any kind of a software or something that you would need to learn about. So those
Certifications, diplomas, innovations, updating yourself, keeping
Exactly.
yourself updated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the hard skills typically that one would require in order to be a successful corporate professional. In terms of the softer skills, and I think you and I just spoke about this, a while ago. I think relationship building. How is it that there is interaction with people at work?
Meaning your colleagues,
Absolutely.
subordinates, seniors.
Absolutely right. That goes a long way.
Yeah.
I have seen this personally. I'm sure you've probably seen this personally in your corporate life as well. Maintaining relationships with people at work, being
Very
able
crucial.
to absolutely being able to get the best out of either yourself or your colleagues, and teamwork, that goes a long way, right?
Yeah. I agree. As a corporate professional, you need to have the skill in you how to be a team player, because sometimes you have to contribute as a team person, sometimes you have to get your team to contribute, and that requires skill.
Absolutely. Sort of linked to that is then, I think you also mentioned this is communication.
Yes.
You have to be a good communicator,
Yes.
right? Whether it is written or verbal, or whether it is even through body language.
Yeah.
I think that is something that is
It plays a
required
key
as well.
role. Yes.
So I think those, in terms of sort of the hard and softer skill sets, is something that are the basics that you would require to be a successful corporate professional.
No matter which level of success you are
Absolutely.
at.
Absolutely.
Yes.
These are the fundamentals, and the further up you go in the corporate world,
You have to be polished.
you obviously have to refine some of those skills, whether they are hard or soft skills, and that's part of the learning process.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, starting from the bottom to the top in the corporate world, your journey there teaches you a lot, right, in terms of how it is you need to deal with different people, whether you're a people manager or not.
Yeah.
You learn all of those things, and it's obviously a gradual journey that one goes through. So I think it's on the job learning as well.
Yeah, experience
Right.
above all.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On the same hand, are these the same skills that an entrepreneur needs to have, or are they different?
That's a tricky question to answer, because a lot of people might debate that there is so many self-made entrepreneurs that you see globally today, right? And all of them boast about not having any hard skills to begin with.
Yeah, is that something to be proud about?
I think that probably is, right, because that goes to show that entrepreneurship, as they say, as they might debate, is something that is inherent in you.
Possible.
You may be born as one.
Possible.
You may or may not be born as one.
Possible.
Right? There are some people who are very successful entrepreneurs after getting a lot of hard skills in terms of a lot of specialization in a particular field, right? So not everybody who's just not gone to school or college has become a successful entrepreneur. That's also not true.
Yes.
Statistically speaking, the biggest billionaires today, coincidentally, are people
College dropouts.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
So I think, but having said that, college degree or a university degree is not the only hard skill.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people's life teaches them experience. People go through certain experiences that can be qualified as hard skills as well.
So you're talking about street smartness here.
Absolutely, right? So how does one become street smart? And those are your life experiences that teach you, right? How you grew up as a child, what was your exposure, what did your parents do while you were growing up? Those can be homemade sort of skill sets that are inherent to you, right?
Right.
So as much as I want to say they are similar, and I'm a total propagator of education, whether you want to be a corporate professional or an entrepreneur, make sure you get a great university degree,
because learning never fails.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right? So that formal education is something that will always help you, no matter what way you decide to go. However, it can be debated on whether being an entrepreneur is that really a necessary thing or not. So like we talked about that. So that's one aspect of it, and I think the rest of it is similar, right? Apart from being a smart person, you need to have basic financial skills. And even if you don't have those financial skills, that's absolutely okay. And there's entrepreneurs that have been very successful.
But they would always have somebody who has the knowledge of the financial skills.
And you can always outsource those things,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I think this is, I talk about this example very often with a lot of friends as well. This has happened to me personally in my case. My wife is an entrepreneur.
Yes.
A self-made one, right?
Yes.
So she comes from no background of entrepreneurship.
She was a corporate professional.
She was a corporate professional. She was a copywriter in the advertising world. And obviously, her personal circumstances, she felt that, what, I could probably do this for my own benefit. And being a creative person, she was very forthcoming in terms of saying that, what, I have no idea about finances. So if you ask me to put numbers on an Excel sheet, that actually scares me. So
even though she's excellent at what she does.
Yes, right. So from a creative perspective, from being out there in terms of pitching ideas to businesses, today she's obviously learned that skill as she's gone along. 5 years of being an entrepreneur, but when she started off,
she didn't have the financial skills. Numbers scared her.
Exactly, right? So she would look at numbers and be like, man, that scares me. Like, how am I going to do this?
Right.
And this is where I stepped in because, I had a bit of a thing for finance.
So you fulfill that role.
Right. So I said, what, let me start you off on this. Let me tell you about how these things work, etc. So I was the finance skill for her, which basically she picked on obviously quite quickly. And today, she basically has no need for me. So she's kicked me out of her business.
Right.
But so I think skill sets are very similar. Like we talked about, both hard and soft. And yeah, so I think that's no major differentiation there. I think whatever works for corporates works for entrepreneurs, the other way around as well. But I think entrepreneurs can probably have a go at it without having certain skill sets that are
you
corporate
can
professional.
outsource those kind of things
absolutely.
if you have the resources.
Absolutely.
Yes. So what if I have all the personality traits to be an excellent corporate professional? I acquire all the skills required, the hard skills, the soft skills, and I have made myself really suitable to take up a job in a good firm as a respectable corporate professional. What all can I achieve through this route? What are the goals I can fulfill?
Through the corporate professional route.
Right.
So I think one of the key differences between a corporate professional route and an entrepreneurship, it can be argued that through the corporate route, you tend to have a relatively steadier flow of income, right?
Yes.
So, you get your monthly salary, you may be having some sort of commissions and bonuses on top that may have a certain frequency of it, but that's, the icing on the cake. But that is something that tends to give a lot of people a bit of comfort to say, what, I see a fixed amount of money that comes into my bank account. I think that then leads to something you and I just talked about is how do you leverage that stable income? Because you know that for an X amount of time, that's what's going to hit your bank account. You are able then to plan a little bit better in terms of what the future looks like for you monetarily.
Yes, because you're sure that you're getting that salary, you're getting paid for those many months with X amount.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. And that then leads to financial planning, right? So like you mentioned, are you able to take off a certain amount and consistently invest it into something that will grow this money for you in the future?
Definitely.
So in terms of financial planning, family planning, whether you're, putting money aside for your child, whether you're putting money aside for your own retirement,
or simply investing,
or
yes.
or maybe to become an entrepreneur in the future.
Possible,
right?
Yeah.
So those are things that you might be able to do a little bit better being a corporate professional. And other things you would possibly see or you would possibly like within the corporate vertical is growth, right? I'm not trying to say that growth is slower within entrepreneurship versus the corporate route, but you would typically have a steady level of growth being a corporate professional, and you may enjoy that. So that is something that could be quite fulfilling for a lot of people.
I think, yes, some people really enjoy having the clarity as a corporate professional that this is the ladder that they may climb if they do so and so. So they know where they're going. And if they want to grow, they can grow and go up that ladder.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think the third thing that works better in terms of the corporate route is the exposure, the learning that you're able to get as you're exposed and involved in different verticals of a business. Take I'll give you an example of Kellogg's. It's the most recent thing that comes to mind. Being a company that is into production of food, today we have an office that has multiple verticals. There's supply chain, there's finance, there's HR, there's marketing, there's trade marketing, and sales. So you get to have an overall aspect of strategy. Where is the company heading? You have an input in that, right? As a corporate professional, you have a say in terms of what goes on from an innovation perspective behind the brand. Now, you as an entrepreneur may also make those decisions, but you may not make those decisions as frequently, or you may not have the bandwidth to sort of reach those aspects of a business. But in the corporate world, you tend to automatically be associated and be part of all of these things. So I think that learning in the corporate world probably comes a little bit early on when it comes to exposure of different verticals of a business. So I think those three things probably are what in terms of fulfillment.
Absolutely. The way you sum it up, it may even tempt people to take up a corporate professional route immediately, because A, you have stable income, which is consistently there right from an early age. B, you know that you can grow if you are working rightly towards it, and you're continuously growing as a person because you're learning, you're being exposed to so much more. So it's not just about the professional growth, you also keep on growing as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah, and everybody's corporate journey is very different. Some experience it much faster than others. So I think, how you pace yourself, what it is you want to get out of it, is at the end of the day what matters.
Right. So in that case, I mean, listening to you, I feel like corporate professionalism would be the best route for anybody to take up. So then why would anybody want to be an entrepreneur? What goals can a person fulfill being an entrepreneur?
So that's a great question, right? And I think both have their pros and cons. So now let's pick it up one by one. We talked about financial stability and being a corporate professional, but as an entrepreneur, the sky is the limit, right?
On the other hand, you can also have a lot of losses because you have a bigger risk appetite.
Absolutely. And that's something we talked about early on, is to say that being an entrepreneur, you obviously would assume that you're taking some sort of a calculated risk.
Yes.
So if you have an X amount of money, and you know that this is what you require to sort of sustain for the future, you're not going to go all in and sort of bet that money into a business and then fail and say, you know what, now I have nothing left.
Yeah, that's not the best scenario,
right?
Yes.
Not the best scenario, but typically people get into that as well, and fine, it is something that you bet big on, and that may not pay off.
Yes.
However, typically, if you're a calculated entrepreneur, and in the way that you start, again, the sky is the limit, right? If you know what it is that you're doing, you're passionate enough about what you're going to be starting, right? And that you have that level of confidence. So resources, let's say that they're going to be available, but that confidence in terms of saying that I know that this is going to succeed, then you could make it big, right? So I think that in itself, as a comparison between a corporate professional and an entrepreneur, both have their pros and cons.
Yeah, I agree. So if I understand it right, what you're trying to say is that the perseverance of an entrepreneur may not pay you with the same consistency as that of a corporate professional, but it may even pay you bigger.
Absolutely.
At some point of time.
Exactly. In the short term, in the long term, whatever time scale you want to look at, it can be a lot more fulfilling in terms, monetarily. Yes, the amount of hard work that goes into it may be slightly more.
Yes.
Right? Which is the whole nature of being an entrepreneur, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, you are the one that is going to be leading the direction of where this organization is going to be heading.
And exactly, that's what you said in the beginning, that you need to have passion. Otherwise, you can't drive the way you're supposed to drive as an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and that brings me to the second point in terms of what are the goals you can fulfill being an entrepreneur, I think, is if it is an entrepreneurship where you are the sole decision maker, I think that in itself is extremely empowering.
Luxury of time. You
Right?
own your time.
Exactly. To be able to say that, this is the direction that I want to clearly go in. These are the customers that I want to be able to target. Those are the people I want to be able to speak to when it comes to my business. Eventually, this is where I want to get to, right? So you strategize your vision in your mind. You may even formalize it in a document, which most entrepreneurs also do. You create a business plan,
yeah.
you write a strategy document,
Yeah.
just like you do in the corporate world.
Right.
But to be able to be that person who's the whole and soul, like in the case of, you are the whole and soul of this entrepreneurship. In that case, it is extremely fulfilling to somebody to say, you know what, the future of this entire organization and the people that I've employed behind it is my decision.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And because I know what I'm doing, this is where I'm going to take it. This is what I know it's going to lead to. So that sort of feeling itself is so empowering.
A lot of people enjoy that. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't like that control or power, but a lot of people do enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be able to have the freedom of your time or your decision making, a lot of people enjoy it.
Yes.
Yes.
And when it comes to learning, and I'm sure you'll agree on this, I think, honestly speaking, there is nothing better than being an entrepreneur in terms of the learning curve. That is so steep.
Oh, yes.
Because you start from the scratch, because you got to go figure everything out by yourself. Unless, let's say, you're inheriting a business or whatever, you might have something to fall back on.
I think you still have to learn.
Right. You still have to learn and,
Yes.
constantly improvise. But if you're, starting from the scratch in terms of something that, that doesn't exist today, the learning curve on that is extremely steep, right? So again, it's unfair to compare the learning curve versus, corporate professional and an entrepreneur. Both have their learning curves. But my belief is that the steepness of the learning curve, especially for an entrepreneur that's starting off fresh, is probably the most fulfilling and probably the steepest.
So for the people who like a lot of challenges or want a lot of adventure or thrill in their life, entrepreneurship can be an excellent choice for them in terms of the kind of things that they can learn.
Yes, provided that they're ready for an adventure that may go well or may not go well.
Yeah, of course. That's how we began, right?
Right.
You have to be ready to fail as an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
Right?
It's a wild ride.
Yeah. So what I understand from this is it's not about good or bad. It's not about this being better than the other
Absolutely.
one. There's no comparison that this route will suit better or is better than the other one. Depends on the kind of person, depends on their personality trait, depends on their skills, depends on what kind of goals they want to achieve. Some
Exactly.
people would like the corporate route better, and some people would enjoy the entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
More.
There is no way to say that one is better than the other.
Yeah.
I think, like we just discussed, both have their own objectives, both have their own outcomes, and both are equally exciting. And it
Yes.
all depends on who you are and what it is you want to achieve.
Most definitely. This whole discussion brings me to a very important question. What if somebody starts off as a corporate professional, has all the right skills, gets a good job, enjoys the job, gives everything that the person could for his or her role, gets success as well as a corporate professional, but somewhere he or she may feel that, can I be an entrepreneur as well? Is it possible that a corporate professional can be an entrepreneur as well?
So, great question. I think the answer to that is simply yes. Right?
Okay.
Again, I think it comes back to how you see your objectives, right? And what it is your goals are. So if you feel that you've peaked in your corporate career, right? And it is, probably the next level or the next level of growth for you is probably too far away. And you've acquired the skill sets that is required in order for you to take benefit of that learning for yourself, then that is probably the best time that you should probably switch to being an entrepreneur, right? And a lot of people do that. You'll see a lot of people that peak their career sort of
growth.
at an age of 40, 45 or whatever it is, and then say,
And
what,
start something
I've
else.
learned everything I need to about this business. Why don't I make it work for myself?
Yes, absolutely.
Some people may view this as being, let's say, quote unquote unethical, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
Right? So, there's nothing that stops a corporate professional from becoming an entrepreneur at any stage. You could just get 2 years of corporate experience, learn the works, learn the system, work for a multinational, go out there and do something for yourself. Or you could do it at the age of 50, 55, 60, whatever it is, right?
Right.
There is no limit to that. So I think it's personally when you feel, right? All of these things all come down to what it is you aspire to be.
Yeah.
And I think, I go with a lot of feelings of instinct when it comes to entrepreneurship. And if you instinctively feel that this is the right time for you to step from the corporate world into an entrepreneur's role, then that's absolutely the time that you should do it.
Or it could also be, as it happened in my case, where I realized that that route is not for me. I joined as a corporate professional, and I realized that does not suit my personality type, and I'm not okay to pursue that route. And that's when I switched to being an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
So it could also be that a person may begin with the corporate route and realize that that's not their cup of tea,
absolutely.
and switch to being an entrepreneur.
And in fact, you know what, you'll see that the opposite happens as well.
Really?
Right.
Entrepreneurs become corporate professionals too.
Absolutely. And I've seen a lot of those examples to say, you know what, yes, I thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur, right? I started something, I was successful in doing that, but it's something that wasn't personally gratifying for me or personally satisfying for me, because I feel that I had peaked that as well.
Yes.
And they may maintain that.
Yes.
And say, you know what, working for a company, working for a multinational,
I like what I get from that.
Right? You
Yeah.
know, exactly. I
Yeah.
want to be able to be exposed to a lot more markets, for example, or a
Yeah.
lot more roles, what
Yeah.
goes on behind the scenes when it comes to a multinational or even a local company, whatever that might be, right?
Right.
And there is something that is also satisfying, to an entrepreneur from that aspect. So I've seen a lot of people do that as well. So it kind of works both ways.
So it's totally flexible.
Absolutely.
You may pick one, experiment with it, stick to it if you like, and switch to the other if you don't like.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. And what would be the right age or time to make the decision whether one should choose the corporate path or the path of entrepreneurship?
I think simply put, there is no right age or time. I think again, it is instinctive. It is when you feel you're ready for whatever it is you want to do. So I think you need to sort of probably make a decision early on, right? So as you're finishing up school, as you know, you're sort of getting closer to becoming a working professional, now, whether that is going to be within the corporate system or whether that's going to be an entrepreneur. I think that's the time you need to sort of decide which way you want to go initially. And like we just talked about, sort of switching. I will say this, that the earlier you get into being an entrepreneur, the better it is, because you're able to take advantage of
The learning
curve.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to start small, being able to invest small into something, right? You may have a high level of confidence, you may need a small investment to start something, and that may pick up for you, right?
Right.
And so you take advantage of time for your side, because then you have 30 years to sort of milk that idea and grow that to what. So entrepreneurship, the earlier started, the better. I think the same goes for being a corporate professional as well. But what point you switch between the two, I don't think there's any sort of limit to that.
I really like what you said right now about starting entrepreneurship earlier. I think there needs to be an ease on the pressure, because I feel that a lot of times the kids or the college grads have this pressure that they have to choose the right career path at once, or you have to make this life-changing decision and it has to be right. So probably people can relax on that decision making. It's okay if they choose this route or that route, and they can always switch and see the results for themselves. Also, sometimes people get blocked thinking that if I'm young, how do I have the resources to be an entrepreneur? But there are so many ways that you can start lean, right? So you just need to educate yourself how you can start with minimum resources and take baby steps, and then you can go from there.
Right, absolutely. And I think that on its own is something that we could discuss, is how, if you do decide to become an entrepreneur and you don't have the resources that's required for the idea that you have, there's multiple ways in terms of getting funding for that, whether it's through angel investors, whether it is through your own funding, and a completely different topic on its own.
Most definitely.
But absolutely, what you said is spot on. Putting that pressure on yourself early on, I don't think there is a need to do that. What you need to know is specifically in terms of a skill set, what is it that I want to basically go after, right? Pick a skill set in the beginning, rather than say I'm a sort of a general person. You may not be a general person early on, or you may, right? But most typically you would want to focus on certain aspects of the business world or whatever other field it is that you want to get into. So yeah, I think that pressure is something that you should probably be able to step away from, but also look instinctively where it is you want to go and start early.
Eventually the clarity will only come when you're doing something.
Exactly.
Yeah. And just emphasizing a little more on the last question that I want to discuss today, as you already said that you can always switch from this career path to that career path, what happens if somebody wants to switch the career path midway? For example, you have been a corporate professional for 10 years and you have switched or want to switch to be an entrepreneur, or you've been an entrepreneur for so long, you're set in that way, and you want to take a path in the corporate world. So can people do that? Is it easy? How do they do it?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything easy or difficult about it. I'm sure there's plenty of examples of people having done that, and I think that's a discussion that we have had as well. There's no right or wrong between either one of them to do it. If you're talking specifically in terms of a career graph and how it impacts you, again, I think the answer would be it depends. You could be a corporate professional for 10 years, be very successful, grow at the pace that a corporate professional would typically grow for 10 years. You could then move into being an entrepreneur, right? Be an entrepreneur for a couple of years, and then let's say that you make a decision to come back into the corporate world, you could immediately go in for an executive level position, because
That's an excellent example.
right, that entrepreneurship would give you such a boost to say
Yes.
that any company would want to hire you as the CEO for their company, right? And there's been plenty of examples of that as well. I have personal example to share. My uncle, who basically started off as an entrepreneur, moved to the corporate world, became an entrepreneur again moved back to so he switched twice between the two, right?
And the graph has been upward.
The graph has been upward and relatively faster than a typical graph of somebody sticking within one space.
Yeah.
Right? So kind of jumping between the two also works for some people. It may not work for some people as well, right?
So that's a strategy that can be adapted.
Absolutely.
Can fit you, cannot fit you.
Right. So typically speaking, your career path can be defined, kind of sticking within one as well. And yes, you can grow that way. You could also jump and, beat the curve if you kind of switch between being corporate professional and entrepreneur. It works for some, it doesn't work for some. So I don't think there is anything that you can say that is a right or wrong to do, or a proven formula.
But there's
for
no
that.
blockage.
Absolutely.
It's totally flexible.
There should be nothing to stop you from doing what you believe is the right thing for you to do.
Right. Awesome. So just to sum it up, your personality type, the kind of environment you have been exposed to, the kind of person you have grown up to be, the kind of skills you've acquired, or the kind of goals that you want to achieve definitely are the deciding factors based on which you decide whether you want to take the corporate route or the route of entrepreneurship, right?
Absolutely. So I think you summed it up quite well. And to kind of reiterate, to say that there isn't one that's better than the other, right? I think the key fundamentals you want to keep in mind is you want to be able to start early, whatever way you want to go. Go with your instinct, build on your skills, know what it is you want to do, right? And have a certain level of confidence in what you want to do,
right?
And then be able to pursue that, right? So again, to reiterate, there's no one thing that's better than the other,
right?
People have seen big successes across being either a corporate professional or an entrepreneur. I think we have seen enough of examples, as individuals,
yes,
on both. So
yes,
I think you've summed it up quite well.
Yeah. And you always have the luxury of switching the routes if it doesn't suit you.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Be flexible, and everything starts with a mindset. So if one thing isn't working for you, be fearless enough to try the other, right?
Yeah.
I think don't let resources ever stop you from doing what it is you want to.
Yeah.
I think those are the things that you should always be able to figure out.
Yeah.
You may always be able to figure out.
Right.
What's most important is you knowing directionally where it is you want to go, what it is you want to do.
And take that decision and act on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dive into it.
Both feet in. Thank you so much, Dinesh. It has been a pleasure having this discussion with you. And I'm sure the listeners are going to enjoy so much your feedback, your tips. And I'm sure somebody out there would be helped with some decision making through this conversation.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah. Thank you for your time here.
Thank
if
you
like it, please do rate and review and keep listening.